My sister demanded $2,900 for prom. When I refused, my parents threatened to disown me. That night, I hit cancel. By morning, everything had collapsed. My name is Nora. I'm 34 years old, a senior project manager at a tech startup in Dallas, Texas. I built my career from absolutely nothing. No trust fund. No family connections. Just pure determination and countless 18-hour days that took me from nothing to everything I have today. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I was deep in a client presentation, walking my team through our Q4 digital marketing strategy when my phone began vibrating across the conference table. I glanced down and saw a text from my younger sister, and what I read made my stomach absolutely drop. Need $2,900 for prom. Venmo it today. I stared at those words, my jaw clenching involuntarily. $2,900. For a high school dance. For one single night of showing off to her friends. I could feel the heat rising in my chest as I typed back, trying to keep my response measured and reasonable. Absolutely not. Get a part-time job. You're 18. I thought that would be the end of it. Maybe she'd pout for a day, complain to our parents, then move on. I was so incredibly wrong. Within minutes, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother. Her message was short, brutal, and crystal clear: pay for your sister's prom, or don't bother calling yourself part of this family anymore. My heart hammered against my ribcage. My father's text came seconds later, even more chilling in its simplicity: choose wisely, Nora. Family or selfishness? For years, 4 long years, I'd been sending money to a joint family account that I'd set up to help them with rent assistance, utility bills, groceries. Basic survival. But this was different. This was an ultimatum. Pay up or get disowned over a prom dress. I tried to go back to work, but my mind kept replaying their words. That casual assumption that my bank account existed solely for my family's convenience. I'd spent my entire 20s proving I could stand on my own 2 feet, working holidays and weekends while my college friends were out partying. Meanwhile, my sister got everything handed to her on a silver platter. And now she had the absolute audacity to call me selfish. The anger that surged through me was unlike anything I'd felt before. But beneath that anger was something sharper, more painful. A slow, dawning realization that my family had been using me for far longer than I ever wanted to admit. That night, after hours of pacing my apartment and replaying their words until they lost all meaning, I made a decision that would change everything. My finger hovered over my banking app, then pressed down with finality. Cancel. 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 By 9 o'clock the next morning, my entire world had turned upside down. And within 48 hours, I discovered a truth so devastating you won't believe what my own family had been hiding from me. To understand why my sister's text hit me like a freight train, you need to understand my family dynamics. I didn't just build my life from nothing. I clawed my way out of a household where I was never quite good enough, never quite deserving. My parents, Robert and Diana Chino, scratch that. Let me call them Robert and Diana Wilson. They poured everything into my younger sister, Brittany. She was their do-over. Their second chance. The golden child who could do absolutely no wrong. When Brittany was born, I was 16 years old and already working after school at Target to buy my own clothes because we couldn't afford extras. My mother, Diana, has always been the decision-maker in our family. My father, Robert? He's her loyal foot soldier. Never questioning. Always nodding along. They lived beyond their means from day one. Designer backpacks for Brittany in middle school. Elaborate sweet 16 parties that cost more than my entire year of community college tuition. Weekend trips to San Antonio with friends while their bank account was literally hemorrhaging money. Their house in the suburbs of Dallas was a constant financial disaster. The air conditioning always needed fixing. The roof always leaked. The garage door always broke. Yet somehow they always found money for Brittany's wishes while their actual needs went unmet. Meanwhile, I was grinding through college at Dallas Community College, working 2 jobs. Morning shifts at Starbucks. Evening shifts doing data entry at a local insurance company. I was determined to make something of myself, no matter what it took. I graduated at 24 and landed my first real job as a junior marketing coordinator. By 29, I was managing major tech campaigns and pulling in a solid 6-figure salary. I lived alone in a modest apartment in East Dallas. No roommates. No strings attached. Completely self-sufficient. But my parents saw me as their safety net. For years ago, when I was 30, I made what I now realize was my biggest mistake. I set up a joint family account to help them cover their basic expenses. Electricity. water, groceries, gas. I thought I was doing the right thing, being a good daughter, easing their financial stress. I was working 60-hour weeks, traveling for conferences, completely drowning in deadlines. I didn't have time to monitor the account closely. I trusted them to use it responsibly. That was my error. Brittany, though, she grew up in a completely different universe than I did. At 18, she was fully hooked on luxury. $400 jeans from Nordstrom, $150 brunches at trendy downtown restaurants, concert tickets that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. My parents enabled every single bit of it, draining whatever savings they had left to keep their precious baby happy. I didn't realize how deep the problem went until that text message shattered my illusions. I always felt like the outsider, the child who had to prove her worth, while Brittany got a free pass just for existing. I remember my mother's voice, sharp and dismissive, whenever I asked for help as a teenager. Figure it out, Nora. You're smart enough. But for Brittany, they'd cancel plans, raid their retirement fund, do whatever it took. I vividly remember Brittany's 13th birthday party. They spent $2,500 on a winter wonderland theme with a professional photographer and catered food. That same year, I was working weekends to afford my textbooks for a single semester. When I mentioned it to my father, he actually said, "Brittany is our chance to get parenting right." The words stung like a slap. But I swallowed the hurt and kept moving forward. Brittany's demands grew bolder every single year. New iPhones every release cycle. Taylor Swift concert tickets in the VIP section. Weekend shopping sprees at the Domain Shopping Center, where she'd drop $800 without blinking. My parents never said no. Not once. Even when their checking account was overdrawn and they were living on credit cards. When I set up that joint account, I genuinely believed I was helping them avoid foreclosure or eviction. I thought I was being a good daughter. Looking back now, I can see all the warning signs I chose to ignore. The new jewelry Brittany would wear to family dinners. My mother's increasingly vague excuses about unexpected expenses. The way my father would change the subject whenever I asked about their finances. I spent years proving I didn't need their approval, building a career I was genuinely proud of. Brittany never had to lift a finger. My parents made absolutely sure of that, no matter what it cost them or what it cost me. And somehow, I was still the one they expected to foot every single bill. That Tuesday started like any other workday. I was deep in a client presentation when my phone started buzzing relentlessly on the table. I glanced down and saw my sister's name flashing repeatedly. The text that appeared made my blood pressure spike instantly. "I need $2,900 for prom. Send it right now. I have an appointment at the boutique at 4 o'clock. $2,900 for a high school dance. For a dress she'd wear once. Shoes that would sit in her closet forever. A share of a stretch Hummer limo to show off on Instagram." My hands actually shook as I typed my response. "Absolutely not. You're 18 years old. Get a job and earn it like everyone else does." I hit send, expecting maybe some teenage drama. Perhaps a whining phone call later that evening. What I got instead was immediate warfare. My phone rang within 30 seconds. I stepped out of the conference room and answered. "You're such a selfish Aubrey." "No, I mean Nora." Brittany's voice was shrill, dripping with entitlement. "It's just prom. Why can't you help me? You make so much money." I gripped the phone tighter, forcing my voice to stay level. "Brittany, you're 18. Plenty of kids work part-time jobs to pay for prom. Try applying at Chick-fil-A or Target. It builds character." She actually laughed. That cold, mocking sound that made my skin crawl. "You don't get it. I deserve this. I've been planning this for months. Everyone already knows I'm wearing a custom dress from that boutique on Oaklawn Avenue." "Then everyone is going to be disappointed," I said flatly. "You're ruining my life," she screamed, then hung up on me. I stood there in the hallway staring at my blank phone screen, my stomach churning with a toxic mix of anger and disbelief. Deserve it? Since when did she deserve my hard-earned money? The memories came flooding back. Being 16 and begging for $60 to go on a school trip to Houston. My mother snapping, "We can't afford luxuries right now, Nora." 3 weeks later, Brittany got $250 for a Justin Bieber concert without a single question asked. By lunchtime, I'd received another voicemail. This one, Brittany hadn't meant to leave. She'd pocket-dialed me. I could hear her whining to our parents in the background. "Mom, Dad, Nora's being completely impossible about this. You need to tell her to pay for my prom. She has to." My mother's voice came through faintly. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We'll handle your sister." I felt ice water pour down my spine. Minutes later, my mother's text arrived like a knife to the gut: pay for your sister's prom, or don't bother calling yourself part of this family. We are serious, Nora. My father's message was even more devastating in its brevity: do the right thing. Don't abandon us when we need you. My hands trembled as I read those words over and over. The right thing? I'd sent them thousands over the past 4 years. $1,200 when they said their mortgage payment was due. $2,500 for emergency medical bills. Countless small amounts. $300 here. $500 there. Always with vague explanations about car repairs or utility shutoffs. And now they were threatening to disown me over a prom dress. That evening, after hours of spiraling and pacing my office, I made a decision. I needed answers, and I knew my family would never willingly give them to me. I called my friend Rachel, an attorney who worked at a law firm downtown. We'd met at a professional networking event 3 years ago and had stayed close ever since. Emergency. Need legal advice ASAP. Can we meet tonight? I texted her. Her response came within 2 minutes: my office at 7. I'll order Thai food. By 7:15 p.m., I was sitting across from Rachel at her downtown office, the Dallas skyline glittering through her floor-to-ceiling windows. Her desk was covered in case files, but her attention was completely focused on me as I explained everything. Something is seriously wrong with this family account, I said, my voice tight with frustration. I need to know what they've been doing with my money. Rachel nodded, her expression shifting into professional mode. Let's pull the full account history. Do you have online access? I logged into the Chase portal on her laptop, and Rachel's fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard. Within minutes, she'd pulled up transaction records I hadn't looked at in over 2 years. I'd been so consumed with work, so trusting of my family. What appeared on the screen made my stomach absolutely turn. There are multiple large withdrawals here, Rachel said, her brow furrowing as she scrolled. Some to credit card companies, others to retailers. I'm seeing luxury department stores, a jewelry store, even a travel agency. I leaned forward, my breath catching. Credit cards? Retailers? This was supposed to be for utilities and groceries. Rachel kept digging, pulling up statement after statement. The more she uncovered, the worse it got. Nora, your parents have been using this account to pay off debt. I'm seeing payments to Capital One, Chase, Discover. And there's something else here. She clicked on another transaction. A payment to a mortgage company. But it wasn't their primary mortgage. It's labeled as a second lien. A second mortgage. The words came out as barely a whisper. They'd always told me their house was almost paid off, that they just needed help with monthly expenses. Then Rachel pulled up another section. Smaller transactions, but constant. Hundreds of them. These are payments to Nordstrom, Sephora, Free People, someplace called Cloud9 Event Planning. And look at this. She pointed to a $3,500 payment from 3 weeks ago. Premium Prom Designs. Austin's most exclusive formal wear boutique. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. My sister's $2,900 demand. The prom planner. My parents' immediate coordinated threats. This had been planned from the start, I whispered. They've been funding Brittany's lifestyle, I said, my voice hollow. For years. Rachel nodded grimly. It looks like your parents have been using your money to service their debts and give your sister whatever she wants. And based on these numbers, Nora. She turned the laptop toward me. We're not talking about small amounts. I felt physically sick. All those years, I believed I was helping with necessities. Keeping the lights on. Preventing foreclosure. Making sure they had food. Instead, I'd been bankrolling lies. I'd been the fool funding their completely unsustainable lifestyle, while they gaslit me into thinking I was their lifeline. How much? I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Let me total it up, Rachel said. She worked in silence for several minutes, her calculator clicking. Finally, she looked up, her expression sympathetic but serious. Nora, over the past 4 years, there have been withdrawals totaling approximately $127,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $127,000. More than 2 years of my salary. Gone. And based on these credit card payment patterns, Rachel continued carefully, your parents appear to be carrying significant additional debt beyond what you've been funding. I'd estimate they're leveraged for at least $500,000. Possibly more. I sat back in the chair, completely stunned. $500,000 in debt. And they'd been using me as a pressure valve, siphoning my money to keep their house of cards from collapsing while maintaining appearances and spoiling Brittany rotten. Every phone call from my mother flashed through my mind. Every emergency that required immediate help. Every time I'd wired money within hours because they made it sound so desperate, so urgent. It had all been a lie. What do I do? I asked Rachel, my voice cracking slightly. She looked at me with understanding. First thing tomorrow, you close that joint account immediately. Then you decide what kind of relationship, if any, you want with people who've been manipulating you for years. I left Rachel's office with a printout of the account history and a plan. But more than that, I left with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't about helping family anymore. This was about survival. My survival. Thursday morning arrived with crystalline clarity. I woke up at 6 a.m., made myself a strong cup of coffee, and sat at my kitchen table with Rachel's account printouts spread before me. The numbers stared back at me in black and white. $127,000 drained over 4 years. My money, my security, my future, all sacrificed to prop up their lies. By 8 a.m., I was on the phone with Chase. I need to close a joint account immediately, I told the customer service representative, my voice steady and cold. The process took 20 minutes. Verification questions. Confirmation of my identity. Paperwork initiated electronically. Each step felt like cutting a chain that had been wrapped around my neck for years. When the representative finally said, "The account closure has been processed and will be effective immediately," I felt something crack open inside my chest. Not grief. Liberation. Any remaining funds will be transferred to your personal account within 48 hours, she continued. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, thank you. That's everything. I hung up and sat in the sudden silence of my apartment. It was done. For years of being their ATM. Their safety net. Their backup plan. Finished. Next, I opened my laptop and drafted an email. No phone calls where they could talk over me, manipulate me, make me second-guess myself. Just cold, hard facts in writing. Subject, the truth. Mom, Dad, and Brittany. The joint family account is closed as of this morning. I know about the $127,000. I know about the second mortgage you never mentioned. I know about the credit card debt, the luxury purchases, the prom planners, and every single lie you've told me over the past 4 years. I set up that account to help with necessities. Bills. Groceries. Emergencies. Instead, you used it to fund a lifestyle you couldn't afford and to spoil Brittany while she developed zero work ethic and complete entitlement. No more money. No more emergency calls. You're adults. Figure it out. Aubrey, I mean Nora. My finger hovered over the send button for just a moment. Then I clicked it. The email whooshed into the digital void, and there was no taking it back. I didn't want to take it back. Within an hour, my phone exploded. Brittany called first, her voice a mixture of panic and rage that made my speaker crackle. You can't do this. We need that account. How am I supposed to pay for prom? The appointment is tomorrow. I stayed calm, though my pulse was racing. You're supposed to pay for it the way everyone else does. With money you earned yourself. You're tearing this family apart, she shrieked. I can't believe you're being so selfish over money. Selfish. I actually laughed. I gave you people $127,000, Brittany. That's not selfish. That's being a doormat. Which I'm done being. Goodbye. I hung up before she could respond. It felt incredible. My mother's text came next. A wall of words in all caps. Barely coherent. How dare you accuse us like this? We needed that money to survive. You have no idea how hard things have been. You owe us after everything we've done for you. This is betrayal. Survive. They'd survived just fine before I set up that account. They'd been surviving on my dime while buying $3,500 prom dresses and booking trips to Cancun. My father's message was shorter, but dripped with manipulation. Nora, think about what you're doing to this family. We raised you better than this. Don't throw away your family over money. Call us and we'll talk this through like adults. Like adults, right? Adults who threatened to disown me over a prom dress. I didn't reply to any of them. Their excuses rang completely hollow now that I knew the truth. That evening, my mother called 17 times in a row. I let every single call go to voicemail. Then she tried FaceTime. Then my father called from his number. Then Brittany texted, "Mom is crying because of you. I hope you're happy." I blocked all 3 of their numbers. Then I set up email filters to automatically send their messages to a folder I wouldn't check. The silence that followed was jarring at first. But then it became peaceful. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't a source of anxiety and obligation. That night, I slept better than I had in months. 1 week later, I made a decision I'd been avoiding. I needed to face them one final time. Not because I owed them anything, but because I needed closure. I needed to look them in the eye and lay out exactly what they'd done with no room for denial or manipulation. Saturday afternoon, I drove to their house in the Dallas suburbs, a folder of bank documents on my passenger seat. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I rehearsed what I'd say. The house came into view. That same two-story colonial with the perpetually dying lawn. The garage door that never quite closed right. The American flag my father insisted on flying despite never fixing the crooked pole. I parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, steeling myself. Then I grabbed the folder and walked to the front door. My mother answered before I could knock, her face already pinched with anger. "So you finally decided to show your face." I walked past her without responding. My father was in the living room, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Brittany sat on the couch scrolling through TikTok, refusing to look up. I didn't waste time on pleasantries. I dropped the folder on the coffee table with a heavy thud. "I know everything," I said, my voice cutting through the tense silence. "The account I set up to help you. You stole $127,000 from it over 4 years. And you're drowning in over $500,000 in debt you've been hiding from me." I spread the documents out like a prosecutor presenting evidence. Bank statements, transaction logs, credit card bills, proof of their spending, luxury retailers, a travel agency, payments to jewelry stores, that second mortgage they'd taken out and never mentioned. My mother's face crumpled, but it wasn't with shame. "How dare you dig into our private business? This is family. You had no right." "I had every right," I said, my voice rising despite my attempt to stay calm. "It was my money. Money I earned working 60-hour weeks while you lied to my face." My father stepped forward, his tone sharp. "You don't understand the position we've been in, Nora. Debts pile up. Life gets expensive. We thought you were helping us because you wanted to." "I wanted to help with bills," I interrupted, pointing at the documents. "Not designer handbags. Not vacation packages to South Padre Island. Not a $3,500 custom prom dress for someone who's never worked a day in her life." I looked directly at Brittany, who still hadn't looked up from her phone. "You've been living off my money your entire teenage life, and you don't even have the decency to acknowledge it." She finally glanced up, her eyes flashing with defiance. "I didn't ask you to send money. That was your choice." The audacity of that statement actually made me laugh. "You're right, Brittany. It was my choice. And now I'm choosing to stop." My mother's tears started flowing, but they felt calculated. Performative. "You're so cruel, Nora. We did this for her. For your sister's future. We were trying to give her opportunities." "Opportunities," I cut her off. "You gave her entitlement. You taught her that other people exist to fund her wants. And you did it with my money while lying to me about struggling and emergencies." My father's voice grew louder, more desperate. "You can't just walk away from us. We are your family. You owe us." "I owe you nothing." The words came out like a roar. "I closed the account. The money is gone. You're on your own now." My mother gasped like I'd physically struck her. "You're abandoning us after everything we sacrificed raising you." "Sacrificed?" I stared at her in disbelief. "You told me when I was 16 that you couldn't afford to help me with anything. You made me work 2 jobs through college. You celebrated Brittany's every achievement while barely acknowledging mine. What exactly did you sacrifice for me?" The room erupted. My mother shouted about loyalty and betrayal. My father accused me of being cold-hearted and ungrateful. Brittany finally put down her phone just to say, "You're ruining my life over money." That's so pathetic. I gathered my documents, my hands shaking, not with fear, but with righteous anger and a strange sense of relief. "I'm done," I said, heading for the door. "I gave you a chance to be honest. All you did was blame me." "This is over." Their voices followed me. Accusations. Threats. My mother's theatrical sobbing. But I didn't turn back. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw my father standing in the doorway, watching me leave. I felt no regret. Only freedom. The weeks after the confrontation passed in strange, quiet clarity. I blocked their numbers, filtered their emails, and created a boundary I should have established years ago. For the first time since I was 16 years old, I wasn't responsible for anyone's problems but my own. Then about 3 months later, I got a message from my cousin Derek, who I saw maybe once a year at Thanksgiving. He lived in Houston, but kept loose tabs on family drama through social media and his mother's gossip network. His text read, "Wanted to give you a heads up. Your parents filed for bankruptcy last week. Heard they're losing the house." I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me, a small, stubborn part that still remembered being a little girl who loved her parents, felt a pang of sadness. But a larger part of me felt nothing. They'd built that disaster themselves, using my money to delay the inevitable collapse. Derek sent another text also. Brittany got a job at Forever 21 at the mall. Heard she's pretty miserable about it. That detail made me pause. I pictured my sister, who'd spent 18 years having everything handed to her, standing behind a retail counter, folding graphic tees, dealing with rude customers, earning $12 an hour. The girl who thought a $2,900 prom dress was her birthright was learning what actual work felt like. I didn't feel triumph. Just a quiet, bittersweet sense of maybe she'll learn something. As for me, I channeled the anger and hurt into rebuilding my life on my own terms. I finally started seeing Dr. Michelle Rodriguez, a therapist who specialized in family trauma and financial abuse. Yes, she said when I described my situation. Financial abuse. That's exactly what this is. You were conditioned from childhood to believe that your value came from what you could provide, she told me during one of our sessions. They trained you to be their ATM. And you internalized that role so deeply that saying no felt like betrayal. Her words unlocked something in me. I grieved. Not for the family I'd lost, but for the family I'd never actually had. The parents who saw me as a bank account instead of a daughter. The sister who learned entitlement instead of gratitude. Setting boundaries became my new religion. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do. Work projects that weren't my responsibility. Friends who only called when they needed favors. Even casual acquaintances who assumed my time was free. I took the money I'd been sending my family, approximately $2,600 per month, and redirected it into investments and savings. Within 6 months, I'd rebuilt my emergency fund. Within a year, I had enough for a down payment on a condo in South Dallas with a balcony overlooking the lake. My own place. My own rules. My own future. I also started therapy specifically around the guilt I felt. A voice in my head kept saying, what if they end up homeless? What if something terrible happens? Dr. Rodriguez helped me reframe those thoughts. You didn't make their choices, she said. You're not responsible for fixing the consequences of their financial irresponsibility. Helping them would have been enabling them to continue the same destructive patterns. She was right. Every dollar I sent would have just prolonged their denial. Funded more lies. Taught Brittany that tantrums and manipulation work. About 18 months after the confrontation, Derek sent me a Facebook screenshot. Brittany had posted a selfie from her retail job with a caption day 487 of adulting. It's harder than it looks. The comments were filled with encouraging emojis from her friends. But what struck me was the tone. Not entitled. Not demanding. Just human. Maybe she was learning. Maybe not. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. I never reached back out to my family. No holiday cards. No checking in texts. No moments of weakness where I considered reopening communication. Some people might call that cold. But Dr. Rodriguez called it self-preservation. You can love people from a distance, she told me. You can wish them well without sacrificing yourself on the altar of their dysfunction. Looking back now, 2 years after that prom text message that changed everything, I see how much I've grown. I bought my condo. I got promoted to senior project manager with a salary that would have been unimaginable to the 22-year-old me working double shifts at Starbucks. I started dating again, something I'd avoided for years because I was always too stressed about my family's next crisis. I also learned the most important lesson of my life: family doesn't mean obligation. Love shouldn't come with a price tag attached. For years, I believed I had to save them. That their problems were mine to fix. That being a good daughter meant sacrificing my own financial security and peace of mind. I was wrong about all of it. The truth is, you can't save people who don't want to save themselves. You can't fix people who don't believe anything is broken. And you absolutely cannot set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, even if they share your DNA. Setting boundaries wasn't cruel. It was the kindest thing I ever did for myself. Taking control of my finances. Walking away from toxic manipulation. Refusing to be guilt-tripped into funding someone else's unsustainable lifestyle. That's what saved me. If you're reading this and you're caught in a similar cycle, hear me: you don't owe anyone your financial security. You don't owe anyone access to your bank account. You don't owe anyone your mental health or your future. Protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. My family made their choices. They chose to live beyond their means. To prioritize appearances over stability. To raise one child with entitlement and treat the other like an ATM. Those were their choices. And the consequences are theirs to face. I made my choice too. I chose myself. I chose my future. I chose freedom. And I've never looked back.